Welcome to Hidden Hilltop Homestead and welcome to the very first vlog of 2025. So happy to have you here with me while I work on my project. So my first quilt is going to be a Valentine's Day themed one. It is going to be an oversized throw, and of course it's going to be a rag quilt. Now, if you have any questions about how to make a rag quilt or are interested in how one is assembled, I will leave a little tag here that takes you to my how to make a rag quilt video. You can check that out, and it has step-by-step instructions of how to put one of these bad boys together. So this is my first quilt of the year, and right now I'm working on making the sandwiches. So the sandwiches are the back, middle, and front of the quilt being quilted together. So I do that by sewing an X through them, which you will see later on. But right now I'm just assembling my little sandwiches. I like to get everything pinned together and then sew. And I'm doing 144 of these little Sammies. It's going to have a lot of color, mostly pink, but I have these really cool red prints too. This one right here I'm working with. It almost looks like watermelon seeds, but the color contrast goes really well with this quilt, and just like the other prints, I don't know, it just meshes together perfectly. So we're gonna put this in there too. And if you're new here, I use warm and natural cotton batting, and then I use a cotton flannel on the back and cotton quilting fabric on the front. And that's normally how I put my quilts together. But I also have another video I just put out, which I will tag here, and that's gonna have different ways that you can put together a rag quilt. So if you're kind of looking for some design inspiration, you might find it there. But I'm just going to keep on making these until I'm done, and then we'll move on to the sewing part. Alright, all of my sandwiches are done. These are pinned, ready to sew. So I'm actually going to put these to the side and work on some other stuff. I have some sample pieces that I need to get cleaned up and lint rolled and all that good stuff. So we're going to do a little bit of a time warp thing here. And these are samples that I'm actually are in the video that I tagged earlier of different ways to make a rag quilt. But I put all these different samples together and I washed them, so now I am just trimming everything up and lint rolling. There was a lot of dark blue fabric in with that, so there is dark blue lint on everything. So right now I'm just trimming, getting all the little knots and stuff out. I am going to have to use my sweater shaver and get some of the pilling off, because there was a little bit of pilling on some of the flannel on the other pieces, and they desperately need lint rolled. This one definitely had a lot of little pilling, and that was because this is Hobby Lobby's extra wide, I believe. It is a beige flannel, and for whatever reason, this flannel pills selectively. So different parts of it would be really bad, and then other parts would have absolutely no pilling. I'm not sure if there's like an inconsistency with the fabric or if it's just the way that it was in the washer, but I've made other quilts and have had no pilling problems, and I've made some and like the whole back thing pilled. So that's just something to consider when working with flannel. Occasionally it happens, and it totally depends on the quality of the flannel, but getting yourself one of these little sweater shaver combs, this was $3 at Joann's. It works miraculously. There are electric sweater shavers that you kind of just like put all over they're like little handheld. They almost look like sanding things essentially, and you just, you know, rub that all over everything. But this still works just the same. It's just kind of like a metal stone comb type thing. But yeah, so I'm gonna get back to getting all of these lint rolled and prepped, and as you can see, there's a lot going on with the lint roller. So we're going to get this done, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. Alright, so I'm moving on to my next project for the day, and essentially what I'm trying to do is create a stencil. I am going to be cutting squares out of t-shirts, and I am trying to create a usable stencil to do so. I'm seeing if this will fit, which I don't think it will because I'm pretty sure this is like a 12-inch wide canvas. But my idea was to take the canvas off of that and just use the frame and use that as a stencil to make sure I could cut everything out, but it's not a square and also it's not big enough. So I'm going to have to try something else. I'm going to probably need 14 inches. I feel like that's an adequate size, which would be right here. And that would give me plenty of room around. Like most of the emblems on the shirts that I'm going to be using are like 12 to 13. So 14 should be like the perfect size, I feel, maybe. Alright, it's looking like 14 is going to be the way to go. So I'm going to look around and see if I can find something to use, because otherwise I'm going to just be cutting these out with my ruler, and I don't really want to do that. Alright, so this is one of my test t-shirts. This isn't like one of the client's shirts. This is just something I'm going to use. So I'm using fabric pencils. These are specifically made for writing on fabric. And I'm trying to mark corners because I am going to be trying to measure and cut this out with my ruler. And we'll see how this goes. My idea for a stencil is going to be a cardboard stencil. And I'm going to make like a picture frame, because ideally I'd have like a piece of plexiglass that is clear, that's just like these omni grids, and I could just use that, put it right over the t-shirt, and I can see through it and see exactly where the words are, so I know where to cut. But I don't have that right now. I am going to make one. I could just order one online. I think they come in like 15-inch squares, so it'd be a little bit bigger, but I think I'm going to make a 14 and then make a 13 for the batting that I will have to cut. And actually it's going to be a good project for my husband. But until then, I am going to try to measure these out and just see. This is, again, just a test t-shirt. I'm going to cut out 2 t-shirts. These are just ones that we don't wear anymore. And then I'm going to cut the backing in the middle out and just measure everything and see how that turns out. Now we're going to see how square this square is. I feel like it's not terribly off. It is a little bit short lengthwise. Widthwise, I think we're good. So I'm just going to take my ruler and probably try to square this up the best I can in the way that it is. It being like 13 and 3/4 long is totally fine as long as it's not shorter than like 13 and a half. And there's a little bit of give because with t-shirts, everything's very flexible and stretchy. But I'm trying to decide if I want to do an X quilt like I normally do, or if I want to use my free motion foot and do just some like squiggles all the way around, which I think that would look better. And the t-shirts I'm going to be using for the client are worded, so that's probably the way I'm going to go. I'm going to go ahead and cut out this other test square. This one is a little bit different, so we're going to see how this turns out, because widthwise it's literally right at 14, whereas lengthwise all of the stuff is up towards the top of the t-shirt. So I'm going to cut the square closer to the neck of the t-shirt, but the emblem is going to set higher. It's not going to be like in the middle of the quilting square. So we're going to see what that looks like, and then also I'll decide if I want to do an X or do some freehand quilting and see what that kind of looks like on more open space. And I'm probably going to use the back of the t-shirts. Like instead of cutting up 4 t-shirts, I'll just cut up 2 and use the front and the back that I'm cutting to be squares, because I only need 4 squares to make a sample cut for this. T-shirts have been cut. Now I am looking for backing. And I'm not going to cut into any of these big pieces because I'm going to use those on throw size quilts. But I'm just going to go through my stash and see what I have scrap-wise. I do keep extra chunks for special occasions such as this. Alright, I think I got some winners. I have this teal and then this off cream colored. Those are bigger pieces. I think I'll just leave those there. But we have tan and we have teal. Alright, I'm definitely going to have enough with this tan. There's plenty here to get all 4 backing pieces cut that I need. So I'm just going to measure this out just like I did the t-shirts and get these cut into squares. Alright, moving on to the batting, and I'm going to be cutting these in 13-inch squares, and I need 4 of these as well. Alright, moment of truth. We're going to see how well everything lines up. I'm hoping I cut everything pretty good and pretty square. My stuff's a little wrinkly, so that's going to fight me a little bit, but that's okay. So, backing looks good. Batting looks good. That wrinkle made the square just a little bit bigger, but that's okay. This will definitely work. So, I'm trying the gray sweatshirt, or the gray t-shirt, not sweatshirt, first. This is the one that's got the logo that's closer to the top of the shirt. So we'll see how this looks. Alright, bummer, but it's too short. We're about a 1/2 to 3/4 inch too short, maybe even a little bit more. And so I'm not going to be able to use this, and I'm going to have to use another t-shirt. So I'm going to find another shirt to cut up, and then hopefully that blue one is better. Alright, wonderful. This fits. This is actually the right size. I just tried to straighten it up and messed it all up, but straighten it up again. So this one will work, and it's long enough. It's actually a little bit longer than it needs to be, so I will square that up a little bit just because this is going to be difficult to keep everything together, let alone making sure everything's straight, because the top fabric is like a jersey. This t-shirt fabric is kind of like a jersey knit. It's not like a cotton quilting fabric. It's a lot floppier and moves around. So I will square this up as best to my ability before I actually start quilting and sewing the blocks together. Alright, I just finished pinning this, and it is so satisfying. It's all lined up and square and trimmed and nice. So this one's ready. And I'm going to go ahead and get the other piece. If this piece is fine, the other piece should be the same size. So I'll have 2 good squares, and I'll just cut up another t-shirt. Yeah, the back piece lines up just as good as the front piece and looks really good. Lots of pins. It's very smooth, and I think it'll hold the swirly quilting pattern very nicely. So I'm just going to do all kinds of like squiggles when I quilt this, and we'll see how that looks. So we have that, and then the front piece looks good. This is promising. I'm very, very excited that this is going as well as it is. Alright, I am moving on to my second to last project for the evening probably, but I am about to start quilting these squares, and I'm trying to decide what thread to use for the back. I have this bright pink. This is a polyester coated cotton, or it's cotton coated polyester, I don't remember which, but this is probably the one I'm going to go with. The only other thread I have is a light pink, and I feel like that's probably not going to match as well. Yeah, definitely looking at it closer, I feel like the light pink will stand out too much. So with darker colors, you can go with a darker thread and it usually works, and with lighter colors, you go with a lighter thread if you don't have an exact match. So we're going to go with the darker, super bright pink. And this fabric's actually more pink in person than it shows on camera. It looks kind of purpley on camera, but let's get some bobbins wound and start sewing. I was getting ready to go to bed. I went and got my PJs put on, and then I decided I was just going to go ahead and sew a little bit more and then try to get the stencil made that I wanted to get made, because we found some cardboard in the basement that will work and it's nice and clean. So we're going to use that to make my shirt stencils. Alright, stencil has been made. So this is a square. I just used a normal piece of cardboard and I cut out 14 inches, and then the inside is 12 inches. Ideally, it could have been 13 inches, and that would have been the size that I needed for my batting, but that felt very flimsy, so I made it a little bit thicker. The inside is just so I can see the placement on the t-shirt, and of course the outside's how big I actually need to cut the squares. Gray, thankfully, was here to hold this down for me so that I could put this on another t-shirt that we're going to be cutting up. I'm not working on this tonight. I'll work on this tomorrow. But let's get this vlog wrapped up. Gray wanted to say thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed. And if you have any questions about anything, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!